All right. It is clay season officially. Monte Carlo Masters 2024 about to go down. This is a preview and prediction, full draw breakdown. We're going to look at Djokovic coming into this tournament, saying he doesn't have any expectations. Alcaraz back on the clay. And we're going to see what Jannik Sinner, who Djokovic says is the best player in the world right now, we're going to see how he does on the clay, if he can keep the train rolling, because he's been playing unbelievable. Obviously, won Miami, won the Australian Open. There's only lost one match all year. We're going to take a look at, though, the other great contenders who, once the clay starts, they seem to get some extra powers. That includes Holger Rune, Alexander Zverev, Andre Rublev won this last year. So we're going to look at it all. We're going to break it down. This is The Slice. Thanks for being here. Yes, Monte Carlo. What a tournament, what a venue. I was there in 2022, if you guys remember. If you were there shouting, on the right hand of the screen is where I shot our video from, up above the court. Very cool location. Like, it's crazy that people get to live there. My wife and I, when we traveled there, we loved it. If you're new here, welcome to The Slice. This is the best place to get tennis, ATP, WTA news, analysis, previews of tournaments, interviews with pros. 2 years ago, crazy to talk about how things change now year to year, it seems, on the ATP Tour. Holger Rune, I was talking to his mom there. Holger Rune was playing a challenger a couple miles away along the coast in San Remo, I believe. Won that, and then the same day came to Monte Carlo to play the qualifying of the tournament and won 2 qualifying matches and made the main draw there. That was only 2 years ago. Now he's obviously won the Paris Masters. He's like top 10. He's just one of the guys. So times change quickly. And that's a theme now, I would say, on the ATP Tour, is things change year to year. So before we get into that, I'm going to do if I get enough questions and comments from you guys, I'm going to do a clay season Q&A fan mail episode. So I'll leave a comment and you can leave your questions or comments heading into the clay swing, like Djokovic and his coach, who's going to become number one by the end of the clay swing, et cetera, et cetera. Well, that video will be coming out soon if we get enough questions. And thanks for subscribing. We're on the way to 20,000. And I appreciate your guys' support big time. What are the stories coming into Monte Carlo? What are the stories? Well, Djokovic is back playing after sitting out Miami and firing his coach, Goran Ivanisevic. He said it was a mutual parting. They both felt like they had gotten everything they could out of that relationship. They've set all the all-time records. I think they won 12 majors together or something like that. So basically the entire time the Slice has been a thing, Goran's been a part of the Djokovic camp, and they've had unbelievable success. So all coaching relationships come to an end at some point. So this really isn't like a huge shock or a big deal. It's just, it kind of makes sense, to be honest. But it's going to be interesting to see who's with Djokovic now, if anyone. He could honestly just not have anyone. He could just have his physio and people around him and stuff like that. Some people are saying Marian Vida, maybe he'll make a comeback. That would be cool. April Fool's jokes were saying that Roger Federer might become Djokovic's coach. I can basically say with 100% certainty that will never happen. So don't get too excited about that. But that's interesting. Djokovic says, like I already mentioned, he has no expectations coming in. He talks about how he lives he has a residence in Monte Carlo. His kids were born there. He plays at the club all the time. He says he feels like extra pressure playing kind of like at home. And we know with the Davis Cup, or more like the Olympics, and tournaments he really wants to win for things outside of him, he does seem to have a harder time doing that, based on my recollection. So it'll be interesting to see him get back. We're going to get into the draw, obviously. Alcaraz is back on the clay after losing to Dimitrov in Miami. How can you blame him with the way that Dimitrov played? It's going to be great to see him back on the clay, his natural surface, really. He's stronger than ever. He's got more experience, so he's just going to be an absolute beast on the clay, I think, and it's going to be really interesting to see. Again, last year he wasn't even here playing in Monte Carlo, so it's great to see him here. Sinner lost in the semifinals last year, but at this point in the season last year, he was really just not the player that he is now, where he's basically the top dog. So it'll be interesting to see him on the clay, how that changes his game, if at all. Maybe it'll give players more time against him. but we'll see how he handles it. So yeah, let's look at the quarter or the potential quarterfinal matchups based on draw. So we got Djokovic, Rublev, top quarter. We might as well just throw the draw up there. We got the Monte Carlo Masters draw here. Top quarter, we've got Djokovic, first seed, versus Rublev potential in the quarterfinal. And then we've got number 3 seed, Carlos Alcaraz. So he's on the top half with Djokovic. Could play Casper Ruud in the quarterfinals. Alcaraz could play Felix Auger-Aliassime in the second round. Our guy, that's pretty crazy. Zverev on the bottom half, 5 seed in Daniil Medvedev's quarter. They could play each other. Daniil Medvedev won a clay Masters in Rome last year. Could he do it again? We'll see. Jannik Sinner, bottom number 2 seed, versus could play Holger Rune in the quarterfinals there. That's a nasty matchup as well. So this is an awesome draw. Let's just, before we get deep into it, I love the draw. I love that it's not massive. It's not 120 entrants. It's 64. 64 players, only the best, only the Masters come out to play. That's kind of the point, I thought, of these Masters, is like only the best are here. They're not mini majors. It's like only the best are here. Some qualifiers. If you look at the qualifying draw for this tournament, it's insane. There's so many good players in it. So that's the point. I like these smaller draws. I like the shorter tournaments, which this one still is. That's just my opinion. Rolex Monte Carlo Masters draw. Djokovic, who's in his quarter? We've got Safulin, who could be his second round match. We've got Arthur Fils. We've got Adrien Manarino. Like, you like my French accents there. I'm trying my best. Lorenzo Musetti. We got Taylor Fritz, Demonauer, Wawrinka. I mean, that's a pretty dense quarter, you got to think. None of those players that I just mentioned are easy on the clay. Safulin's a baller. So it's going to be tough for Djokovic from the first match, I think. Rublev won the tournament last year. He believes in himself here. And he beat Djokovic, I believe, a couple of years ago at Monte Carlo. They could play in the quarterfinals. That's interesting. Carlos Alcaraz, like I said, could play Felix Auger-Aliassime in the second round. We're going to hope for that. Felix will have to be a qualifier. I'd love to see Felix have another crack at Alcaraz. He kind of got outclassed when they played in Indian Wells. Felix is still trying to get his confidence and his game back, and obviously that's not a great draw for him to play Alcaraz in the second round. Zhizhen Zhang is there, Marcos Giron, Hugo Humbert, who's been playing great. Hubert Hurkacz has been playing great as well. With the serve rating, he's got the highest serve rating on the ATP Tour right now, which is pretty crazy. Jack Draper, he's in there. It's good to see him back in these tournaments using his ranking. He's been able to get back there, which is great. And then Casper Ruud. 2 dirt ballers. Alcaraz, Casper Ruud could be a 2022 U.S. Open final rematch in the quarterfinals of Monte Carlo. Hello. And on the bottom quarter, we've got Sinner. Sorry, not bottom quarter, bottom half. We've got Zverev and Medvedev in the same quarter. That's interesting. There's a lot of, this is like the open quarter, I would say, for him. We've got Stefanos Tsitsipas in there. So who a lot of people are saying, this is a guy who's won this tournament back-to-back before. He's slipped, obviously, in the rankings. He's now 12 in the rankings. But he's a guy that we know can play so good on clay. He's definitely probably a top 4 player on clay. So really, is it fair to expect Tsitsipas to, play Zverev there in the third round and then play Medvedev in the quarterfinals potentially? Like, I think Tsitsipas has a good chance to get out of this draw, and maybe he'll get some of his mojo back at this tournament. That's a potential. Bottom quarter, Sinner's quarter, Holger Rune is in it, who, like I've already talked about, is a beast. We all know he's a beast on the clay. This is where he really broke out after that 2022 time that I was there in Monte Carlo. He won the Challenger. He came and played in Monte Carlo, played well, and then he went on and beat Zverev, and I think won the 250 in Hamburg. Or not Hamburg, another in I'm forgetting the tournament. Let me know. You guys know which one I'm talking about. And then that's kind of really where he became, okay, Holger Rune is no longer like a next gen challenger player. He's like big time on the ATP Tour right now. So that's awesome. That's freaking awesome. Matteo Arnaldi in there could play Holger Rune in the second round. Sinner could play Davidovich Fokina. He's a beast on the clay. Or Korda. He could play Bublik in the third round. Dimitrov is in that corner. Hello. That's a tricky opponent based on the way he's playing, throwing into that deep quarter. So that's a, and then Berrettini's got a wild card there, as he should. That's a talent-packed quarter. The top quarter, Djokovic's quarter, very dense. And I would say Sinner's quarter, also very dense. Interesting to see. Maybe the two toughest quarters are the 1 and 2 seeds going to have to deal with. What do you think? What do you think on that draw? Prediction, I am thinking a potential Alcaraz, like Tsitsipas final again, a la Barcelona 2022. A la they've played a bunch of times, and Alcaraz has beaten the socks off Tsitsipas the last few times they've played. But that might sound weird that I think Tsitsipas could go through there. But he's just, when you can play without expectation, players usually tend to play better. I'll say that. But as far as predictions, I'm going to go with Carlitos Alcaraz back on the clay, back in Europe, finding his pizzazz. This kid, this kid's just getting started. To think that people, I find tennis fans, I love you guys. You guys are why we're here. I find you guys it's so like, maybe it's more on Twitter. People are so like, Sinner's had a great start to the year. Now he's the GOAT. Now he's like now he's like levels above everyone else on the tour. He's not levels above everyone on the tour. He's the best. He's playing the best out of anyone on the tour right now. But the top 4 guys, Djokovic, Alcaraz, and Medvedev, can all hang with him for sure. And then there's other guys like Holger Rune on clay, Tsitsipas on clay, Dimitrov in general. They can hang with him. I mean, Dimitrov, I guess, didn't hang with him really in Miami. Sinner is playing amazing. I'm not going to downplay that, but I think the clay, for the last few seasons, is where more players can do more damage. It used to not be the case. It used to be like, is Nadal going to win every single tournament or match he plays in the clay swing? Now it's like there's a lot of guys who can win tournaments on the clay. And I forgot about that point. Nadal's out. He's not playing this tournament. His body's not ready. So that story continues to be like, he's hitting, but his body's not ready to play. How do we bridge that gap of like hitting with intensity to like playing a tournament? At his age, with his body, it continues to be tough. So anyways, that's the slice. Now you know what you need to know. The Monte Carlo 2024 draw preview and prediction. That's a wrap. Let me know your guys' thoughts below. Let me know your questions and comments in the first comment below. And we will react and talk with you guys later on the slice. Thanks for being here.